I'm going to give you another definition for prayer here, too, because we have so religiousized it over time that it's just like you think of prayer and you think, well, that's a duty God expects out of us, but it's no fun. Mike Bickle calls it rock pile experiences, where you're just busting rocks, or it's some kind of religious ritual. But prayer is, this is just another definition, is the process of natural, supernatural communication. And he talks about praying in the Spirit, but there are places in the New Testament where it does talk about praying or worshiping in the Spirit, that it doesn't necessarily limit the definition to praying or worshiping in tongues. But it means really, truly, it means to be guided by the Spirit in your prayer. We are a real rational, logical, intellectual society, and so pretty much, it goes way, way back, but pretty much we've been educated in the idea that everything is an intellectual, rational process. Whereas communication with the Lord, or communication between our realm, or that which is physical to us, and in the invisible realm or spiritual realm, is not illogical, but it operates on a different set of logic. And we need to be able to start learning better what that process is, what the supernatural process is as it relates to our life, because we are actually first sons and daughters of God. Second, we're on an earthly journey and on an earthly physical path right now, but that comes subordinate to the fact that we are supernatural. We are spirit beings having an earthly experience in this earth. What I'm doing right now with Night Sight, by again emphasizing some simplified dream principles that really help us to catch the language more quickly. It's been a lot more quickly for me. You know, another thing that an intellectual or a rational society, as well as religion, does is it just overcomplicates everything. And so interpreting dreams, there's a lot of good information out, but it's become so complicated that nobody has confidence in really even attempting. On top of, it's so unusual that, and because we think, well, that which is real is what we can rationally work out, then we devalue that as just frosting on the cake. Whereas the fact of the matter is the supernatural language and communication with God is the cake itself. It is not the frosting on the cake, it's the cake. It's the heart of everything. We continue on this theme of seeing, which we want to emphasize really as a core element of all of our communication and study with the Lord, because it's really part and parcel of the door to understanding and getting revelation. Because we get the revelation initially and primarily by sight, visually. We see things, and we have emotional impressions that come with it, but we see it first. And that's not just a spiritual principle. There's scientific evidence to the fact that 90% of what we learn, science tells us this, 90% of what we learn are the various actions of seeing. 90% of what we learn, we in some way see first, or see in conjunction with. We see examples. Jesus taught in parables, so he made things visual. When he gave the promise to Abraham about his seed, he gave him a visual to look at, because it's the way we're made. And the language of the Spirit actually is pictorial. We see things. Okay. Now, we say, well, I don't. Well, yes, you do, but you just haven't recognized that what's going on. You know, if you honestly don't see, then we'll stop here and we'll lead you to the Lord. Because the fact of the matter is that he says, my sheep do hear my voice. And that means, it really means perceive my voice. And we recognize that visual is a way that he communicates primarily. And even when it comes down to most people get directions mostly by visualizing landmarks. I mean, it's just all about sight. And if people that say that they really can't see, and I know that I'm repeating some ideas, they say they can't, all I have to do right now is ask you to tell me what your front room looks like. You just saw it. See, our imagination really is active, but we haven't recognized. In fact, we've minimized or just glossed over all of the visual stuff that's going on inside of us. When we worry visually. When we're angry visually at a real person or event. We relive the visual of it. We think in visual terms. Our heart language is visual. So it says in 1 Thessalonians 5:17, pray without ceasing. And so we can take the definition of prayer here as naturally supernatural communication. And we can turn that to accurately, naturally supernatural communication continually and engage with it. Okay. Evidences of the presence of the Holy Spirit, it's interesting to note, refer greater or lesser degrees initially to that which bypasses the intellect, communication from the Holy Spirit. We worship in our culture at the altar of human intellect and rationality and natural logic. But the fact of the matter is that when the Holy Spirit wants to get something especially new or a revelation through to us, he has to bypass our mind. And he does that in dreams and praying in the Spirit and visions. And we can say that that's actually the trinity of primary communication that bypasses the natural logic. Now, he will use natural logic or reasoning to help put together meaning that we can understand or communicate with each other. But the heart of it, his communication comes to us in a visual way, in a way that bypasses the natural understanding. Joel and Acts both talk about the fact that in the last days, and by the way, these are the last days. The last days started with Pentecost. We are in the last of the last days, but the last days started with Pentecost. And he said, in the last days, I will pour out my Spirit. Well, that's what happened at Pentecost. I will pour out my Spirit, and your sons and daughters will prophesy, dream dreams, have visions. That'll be a primary form of communication in my world, in the spirit world. So, because we are slow to be functioning that way, doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. It just means we've been trained by this world. And we can be retrained. Old dogs can learn new tricks if there's enough benefit in it. And once you begin to realize there is benefit in really hearing from God, because he actually talks to us and we get to know him through communication rather than just doctrines about him. We get to know him. And what I've discovered is the fact that he's really pretty immediate in answering. He answers questions. You can ask him a question, or you can you can specifically ask him questions before you go to bed at night. If that's something that's really on your mind, that's been part of your thinking process, is part of your setting in your waking life, you can ask him about that, and he will answer you about that. Now, sometimes the answer will be to ask us more questions, because Jesus did that a lot. Or he'll point us certain directions. But there's something that, and Tony and I were talking about this, I think, a couple weeks ago. It's a really common thought that as soon as I can get something that I'm understanding that I'm dreaming, I'll write it down. Then you'll never write anything down. Because initially, it, generally speaking, makes no sense at all. But it will be surprising that if you dedicate yourself to that and you learn some simple, basic principles, of which I'm talking about right now, you'll start going, oh, that did mean something. Wow. And he talked to me about it. And he encouraged me about it. See, we're afraid to listen to God. I remember one time when a guy named Meltari, I think I've told some of you this before, a guy named Meltari, an Indonesian, was in Chicago. And we were going to get to have a meeting with him. And he was involved in the Indonesian revival back in the major revival. And we were kind of afraid to go because we thought he was going to see inside of us and see all our crap. And so a lot of times people are really kind of afraid to open up, to think about listening to God, interpreting their dreams. And I mentioned this last time because they're afraid he's going to nail them for something. But as I said last time, remember, says the Holy Spirit is an encourager. He'll always be encouraging you, even if he's got to correct something. He will do it in a way that you end up feeling encouraged by it, because that's who he is. And we need plenty of encouragement in this world. So I just like to have some relationship with somebody who is giving some real communication on a God level that really gives me a sense of security in this world. The Lord told me about it's interesting, a dream that I just had on Friday night. I went to bed. I was concerned about the fact that what's going to happen. They were forecasting this big snowstorm. What's going to happen? Are we going to have to cancel again? I was frustrated. And by the way, I was writing all that stuff down, and I want to suggest something to you, that you write your earthly setting, which is part of the interpretation process of what's going on in your life, how you're feeling about things right then currently, what your thoughts are going through, what your feelings are going through, what's kind of uppermost in your mind in overall terms. You write those down and journal it at night. Because the next day, first of all, it does two things. It quickens your subconscious that you're going to be connecting this to dreams. But secondly, it's much easier to remember if you have to go back in the process and think, okay, let's see, what was the setting on my mind? And I'm not sure. What was I thinking about yesterday? What was I feeling? Write it down the night before you go to sleep. And besides that journaling process is therapeutic in and of itself, to journal your day. But you don't have to start out, if journaling is a distasteful thing to you, you're not used to that idea, such as myself. I never was big on journaling. If that was the situation, if that's the situation, just start out by writing briefly a couple paragraphs or just a couple generalized sentences. It's getting a seed in the ground to start with. Okay, but it does become therapeutic in and of itself. But it really is a big help if you've already got your day waking setting there for you, sitting for you. All right. So anyway, I'd been thinking about the fact, and I'd written about, I'm concerned about what's this going to mean this weekend again, and I'm. And we already are missing another one, and we're going to be missing another weekend, and all the ramifications of that, Of course, financial, but that's a real thing, but it's not the big thing in my mind. It's just, there's a combination of a lot of emotions that trying to decide what is the right decision to make right now, if you're really kind of on the, edge. So that night, I dreamt that I was driving along in my car, a car, it wasn't my car. I was in a car, and all of a sudden my dashboard lit up, like warning, warning, engine, warning, warning, warning. And it was, you need to pull over and get this taken care of. There's something wrong in the engine. You're getting a warning. So I pulled over, and the next thing I know, I'm in this garage, and the chief mechanic looks at the car and says, yeah, I can take care of it for you. And I'm thinking, great, I'm already not doing well financially necessarily. I don't have a lot of extra income. So what's this going to cost me? And he said, $74.33. I'm going, what? It was something like that. Wow. That's way less than I thought it was going to be. And then another mechanic in the garage. Next scene was my tire had a flat. So he fixed that. And then I woke up. So I'm sitting there and I'm looking at what I've written down and turn on the TV. And there's Davenport's declared an emergency. And so the Lord is telling me there'll be an emergency declared. There's a warning out, but it will not be as bad as you think it or afraid it will be. It'll be minimal. Mm-hmm. So he was communicating with me and encouraging me in the fact that there is going to be conditions, but that it'll be minimal. And even though we're slowed down, kind of a flat tire, it's going to be fixed. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. So that was a great comfort to wake up on Saturday morning with that. And this is another thing about dream language is people get the idea that it's this deep, profound message from God. He's teaching us this deep doctrinal truth, this profound revelation. My discovery has been that it's basically been a communication between me and my best friend. And he just talks to me about stuff. And he talks to me about the stuff that's on my mind at the time, just like a best friend would. We just sit and have chats about stuff. And nothing's real profound, but it's always encouraging. In fact, I suddenly discovered back a few weeks ago that when the Lord spoke to me through dreams or some other way, I could feel his voice. And it helped me identify it. And it felt like, and this is the term that came to me, it felt like my favorite best friend uncle, who was all wise, loved me, and was my mentor. It's just how it just had that real warm, wise, familiar feel to it. Now that I recognize that, when the Lord speaks to me, I recognize that warm feeling. I can feel his voice as well as trying to discern, well, is the byproduct of that positive or negative? That's included, but it's like it's feeling like a real person is communicating with me, and rather than a far off God. I think. Have you ever heard the term graphic novel? Graphic novel. Okay, that's an adult comic book. I don't mean pornographic. I mean it's an adult comic book. I mean, graphic novel just makes them feel better. They're really putting out comic books of an adult nature, like adult coloring books, But I've often thought that in terms of, that just came to me one day, my best friend Jesus speaks in graphic novel. That's the way he talks to me. He just draws me pictures in a graphic novel. And these things all means different stuff that's real personal to me. Let me mention this law. This is the law. Whatever you consistently give your attention to grows. I mean, I'll tell you, I've been on a roller coaster myself on this for several years of the whole thing of journaling, the whole thing of understanding dreams and trying to learn how. And I'll go for a while and I'm getting a lot of dreams and I'm understanding what they're saying. Then the next thing you know, I kind of go, oh, I didn't get that at all, and I forgot that, and now I'm not getting them, and up and down, up and down, up and down. That's normal. But if anything you give your attention to does grow over time. And because God, I believe, he wants to communicate with us that way, when he sees there's a crack in the door, that's how we're wanting to pursue him, and we're recognizing that that's a reality of communication with him, he just keeps chasing us like the hound of heaven. He'll just keep coming after us. Now, when he catches us, we'll feel bad, kind of, oh, I'm sorry, Lord, I neglected it. And he'll say, get over yourself. Let's move forward. He said, I don't need all of your apologies. You're wasting time because I'm not feeling bad about you. So let's move on. Okay, but depending on the religion we've grown up with and how severe it was, depending on our parental system and how severe it was and what we expect out of authority figures, it affects all of that. Also, this issue of fragments, even still today, most of my dreams are fragments. In other words, I don't have this long... I've heard people talk about dreams where, man, they're giving you all kinds of detail, and this happened next, and this happened next. I've never had a dream like that. But I have had fragments that when I wake up, I know I dream more. I don't remember all of it, but a fragment sticks out. Something about the fragment sticks out. And God knows me, and there'll be something in that fragment that he is overall communicating with me that will be a couple of sentences of what he's trying to get through to me, that fragment shows. So remember also that you probably will dream more scenes than one at night. And you may not remember more than one of them, but a lot of times I'll remember 2 or 3, sometimes more. And that they're all fragments, but this is helpful to remember, they typically all relate to the same thing, except they're all in different language. So it helps you then to decode the other dream. Once you figure out what one of them is trying to say, that helps you, oh, well, that's saying that. Yeah, of course it is. And just in a little bit different way. Now, I'm talking about this being a simple process, and the way I'm explaining it maybe is making it sound complicated. Remember, there's just a basic, simple process that as you begin to plug into this, you'll start playing with your dreams a little bit, and you'll start thinking, oh, I can do this. I'm starting to understand this. And that eggs you on to figuring out some more stuff. The first one, and I made this a point on purpose, intentionally involve the Holy Spirit. Do not try to figure it out on your own. Make that the first thing you say. Holy Spirit, help me now. Engage the Holy Spirit. Number 2, you write down your daily setting. Just create a habit of writing it down. What's on your mind? Then you write down your dream setting. The things you remember, those little fragments, the pieces of what's going on and how you're feeling in that dream. Then you match the two and ask the Holy Spirit what it means. A lot of times what will happen with me is once I say, Holy Spirit, help me now, because, almost always my fragments make no sense whatsoever. In fact, even recently I've thought, I'm not bothering with that. That had to be pizza. And turned out, I was really glad I messed with it because I'm going, wow, that was encouraging. It did have meaning. It wasn't just gobbledygook or a crazy, crazy dream. But just work at it. Pursue it and work at it. Always involve the Holy Spirit. Write down your setting. Write down the dream setting fragments and match them. In other words, the Holy Spirit will help you to match them also. The Holy Spirit will help you to go, oh, I think that maybe fits there, and he'll give you a thought. There will be kind of an overriding thought that'll occur, a description of what is a way you could describe this. Let's see here if I got another dream that I can. I just had this dream last night. I dreamt, and it came in 2 fragments. I dreamt that I was outside looking at the cab of a truck, and the cab of the truck was being painted. He was getting a fresh coat of paint. And the next one, I was standing next to a silver truck cab, and I was looking forward and patting the fender with my right hand as if I was feeling good about that truck. That was a friend of mine. It was going to help me do what I needed to do. I would have you try to figure that out, except for, I'm just going to tell you now because we're kind of late, but I'm in a new stage of ministry because it's a vehicle. And it's a truck, and I also know that I'm a supply. I already know that. So it's a truck cab. It's the thing that pulls the supply. And I'm in a new stage of ministry, and it's basically, it's authoring, it's writing. I'm in a new stage of ministry. That's how I got out of a truck getting a new fresh coat of paint. I'm in a new stage of ministry and delivering supplies that will redeem people. I'm in a new stage of ministry. It's going to deliver a lot of supplies that will redeem people. That's a very encouraging dream. Sometimes when I'm in the process of writing, I'll go through the thing of thinking, is anybody ever going to read this? Is this ever going to really amount to anything? Am I just really wasting my time right now? Da-da-da-dee, da-da-da-da-da-da. Well, that's a very encouraging dream. And when I went to bed last night, my setting was, I was thinking about today, but I was also thinking about a book that I'm actually finishing, which is going to be I'm going to talk about it a little bit. It's going to be published prior to New Year's, and we're going to have service on New Year's, and hopefully it'll be published by then. And what I'm going to teach on New Year's is the subject that this book will go in a lot more detail on, of how to forget your past, which is a flip on what we usually think of a New Year's message is. It's usually what's coming in the year ahead. But the problem is, people look at what's coming and we keep going, oh, that's cool, okay. And then they're discouraged a little bit later because how do they get loose of this anchor that keeps them anchored in the past? I would encourage you to start Facebooking or emailing me some of your dreams. I'm going to start, in fact, I may even approach you by emailing you or said, do you have any dream fragments yet? I'm going to keep you accountable.
Can
Give me
old
things
ones that we're not sure about?
No, because unless you absolutely know what your setting was in that dream,
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
then that's why you need to write them down, because when you go back over them and look through them, it brings back to mind what your setting was right then. Because that's real important to being able to understand your dreams, is what was going through your natural waking life, your circumstances. Because that's how what he wants to communicate with us about. So, and what I'll do is I'll end up, if you haven't told me already, I'll actually end up saying back, so what was your setting? Because I can't even start to help you until I have your setting. And what you've been thinking about and so forth and so on. Stuff you're going through. I would imagine you guys will dream about some chaotic things because you're redoing your house.
Oh my.
My thing is I wasn't sure what I had a dream where flies were attacking my head. And I looked up the interpretation, but I couldn't relate it to anything that was going on in my lives right then. So it was just kind of like I gave up too soon. I didn't really pray that long about it or really really involve the Holy Spirit in it. It was more like just, that's weird. I looked up the dream interpretation, but I didn't make a connection, so I didn't really...
Yeah. Be careful of going for the dream interpretations first, because these are really personal.
Yeah.
Now, flies are going to be a thing that you're probably going to have a negative interpretation to you anyway. They're going to be pesky things.
Yeah.
But they may not be exactly what the dream dictionary told you they were.
Maybe I'm pesky.
Maybe you're pestering me that day or something.
Or flies could indicate that there was just some things, things were troubling you that day. They were just just buzzing you. They're just like, oh, come on, man. It could have been stuff like that. I don't know, but, of course, the other thing, I'm going to do this real quick for the tape. The other thing is, how do you know whether or not this is a prophetic dream or not, because 97% of your dreams will be about you. You will be involved in the action of 97% of your dreams. The dreams where you are not involved, but you're simply an observer watching something out here, you're not personally interacting, then it's not about you. But a couple of percent of your dreams will actually be that way. Also, another way to tell is if you were in a car, for example, if you are driving in the car you currently own and you recognize it's the car you currently own and something goes wrong with it, like you're running out of oil in the dream, then you better go check your oil. That's probably a literal dream and the Lord is showing you.
That makes sense.
If you're in your literal house and you recognize the room is literal, you recognize it. Most dreams, when you're in a house, you think it's your house, but it doesn't exactly look like your house. So that's a metaphoric dream. And Kim Clement is a pretty good, accurate prophet who's been at the Lord for about a month now. But he had an example. He has a lot of prophetic dreams, holding the office he does. And he dreamt that he was in the Oval Office at the White House. And he just saw himself in there. He was not interacting with anybody, but he saw stuff going on in there. So he knew that was the Lord talking to him about something going on in the Oval Office. Literally, not about he and his personal life. So, all right.